It's time now for Harm Reduction. Heard every Tuesday at 7 p.m. with Will Beaton. Cutting Edge Radio, where we'll ask the questions others don't want to ask. Now here's your host, Will Beaton.
How the heck are you, Cal?
I am good. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. It means a lot that you're here and that we're talking about the harm reduction report. I'm just realizing again that we've done it a lot, you know? This is our 18th?
19, yeah. We're on episode 19 here. 19 solid weeks of harm reduction material, and what a great honor to have like this platform to spread perspective and awareness about drugs and drug addiction and stuff. It's been really a great honor, and I, as well, am grateful to be here. And so glad that you included me, and so happy to have the spot on the station.
Thanks, man. I'm happy about it, too. It was cool last week being in the studio because we got to chat with Dr. Noah and other Noah and other Noah.
Yeah, I met all the Noahs.
All three Noahs were there. It was pretty bad, though, because I'm pretty sure each one of them I told them was they're my favorite Noah.
Oh, my favorite Noah. Every time you saw Noah.
I didn't expect I'd see all three of them in one day, so I have to be more careful next time.
Yeah. Oh, my second favorite Noah.
Yeah.
You love them all, huh?
But that was fun, and I'm feeling reflective. I'm feeling, I don't know, like I wanna be grateful for what we're doing, and I want to make sure we're doing well into the future and all that. And Cal and I were just chatting here about our plan for the next few weeks and the next few months and whatever. And it's going to be a little bit different for a little while because next week I'm going to California. And I'll be there for 5 weeks, and so we think most of our episodes are going to be coming out of there for the next 5 episodes. It's really cool because I'll be working with these people who are involved with MAPS. Once again, the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies is the parent company of the UND Psychedelic Club, the parent non-profit organization, I should say. I'll be working with a bunch of these MAPS people, and they're hosting a harm reduction. Well, they're calling it a risk reduction workshop the first week of May. So my time out there, I'll be preparing for this workshop, conference kind of, and I'll be interviewing a bunch of these cool people talking about harm reduction skills, including skills like naloxone administration, substance testing kits, and even things like how to use a milligram scale properly. Oh. Which is, you know, when you're dealing with substances that are very dose dependent, for people who are actually using substances, that is an important skill to know how to do.
Sure.
But there's some other harm reduction things that are a little less intense than such hands-on skills like that. And I'm going to have fun learning about that. And so I think our next few episodes will involve some interviews with me and some of those folks I'll be meeting over the next few weeks, and I hope that'll be entertaining.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what comes out.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Cal will be doing the Psychedelic Club meetings at UND, and would you mind explaining the woman you met who's going to be at the next meeting?
Yeah, so Haley Wamstad is currently the Grand Forks County defense attorney. Was that correct?
Was she?
And she is running for running for the position as Grand Forks County top prosecutor.
Right. Oh, I thought she was an assistant.
Prosecutor
or something.
Yep, assistant state prosecutor.
Or a county, or.
I don't know. Although it's all mixed up, but I guess what's really fascinating is that she is seeking the position of being the county's top prosecutor. And what's really fascinating and endearing and promising to me is that she wants to come to this Psychedelic Club meeting to sort of get a perspective about drugs and drug policy. That's really so great that she wants to be there and learning, you know, as opposed to just kind of coming into the position with her own preconceived notions about how things should be. She's willing to come and get perspective from different people, and that's really great. So it's great also to have her because I think then we can, it's kind of like a gateway, a door in, you know, to sort of open up a dialogue about appropriate stances on prosecution and drug policy and stuff. And she's, right there, perfect person to be talking to.
I wonder what her opinions are about some of these harm reduction things. And no matter what they are, it's cool that she wants to hear what the student perspective is.
Yes, it's very nice that she's considering our perspective. And I think she's going to be pretty receptive to our ideas and at least consider them, because she was first at that first event that I spoke at and that you were recording, the opioid epidemic at the Empire Arts Center. And then she was also at this recent event where Face It Together and I were speaking, and Michael Dulitz was organizing about, titled Addiction at Work, and sort of the appropriate stance on addiction in the workplace.
Right. So you met her at both of those events?
Yes, very briefly. So
with her?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm going to be looking forward to your meetings, and I'm going to be lonesome that I won't be there. I've missed the last couple because I've been traveling, and this week was spring break, so there wasn't any meetings. But yes, I'll be thinking about you guys. Slightly good news. No, more than slightly. Very good news that we found out that our faculty advisor, Frank White, is not retiring.
Yep. He got talked into another year by the dean.
Oh, right.
So,
yeah. Did he seem excited about it?
Yeah. He's like, oh, I got talked into it. I'm going to meet with him sometime this week or next week and kind of give him an update and see where he's at and everything.
That's a great idea. One thing he'll need to do is work with the new president if you are, in fact, graduating soon.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah, it definitely takes a little bit of the weight off that he is sticking around for another year.
Yeah. You and I were just looking through some of these hodgepodge recordings. We got a few clips from the Students for Sensible Drug Policy Conference in Baltimore a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Last week we recorded sort of a catch-up, how was it video, or recording. This week we've got a couple snippets of interviews from who from?
Rob Goldsmith. First of all, he was our roommate there at the SSDP 2018 conference. We have our initial plan was to kind of have people coming in and out of the room continuously and asking them, like, what is harm reduction and stuff. But that didn't quite work out. The schedule was so packed and there was so much other fun stuff to do that we didn't end up doing that. But so we did end up recording a quick what is harm reduction to you, Rob Goldsmith. And then a couple weeks after the conference, I did a conversation with Gunnar Aas, who was also there at the 2018 conference. And he gave a panel discussion about cryptocurrency and how it relates to the drug war and stuff.
He was on another panel too, Gunnar, on something just being a campus change maker or something, or how to organize specific kind of changes on a campus.
Okay.
And I had fun listening to him then. What was cool about that was he said he's from Hamline University, and that's when I was like, there's another Minnesotan in here.
Yeah.
That was cool. So you've got kind of a long interview with Gunnar, right? 20 minutes or so?
Yeah, about 20 minutes.
Sweet. So I think we'll cut to that in a minute as well. I'm curious to see how his answer compares to Rob's. You flat out asked them both, like, what is harm reduction?
Yep. Yeah, we're a little ways into the discussion. We finally got around to asking, what is harm reduction to you? And he gave a pretty good detailed answer, like Rob did, a little bit extended, which was awesome. So that'll be interesting, get a big perspective. It would have been awesome to have, like, just tons of people, just a compilation of this question, what is harm reduction, and kind of stumbling upon, like, new ideas about what is harm reduction.
Yeah. Well, if I ask you right now, what is harm reduction?
Good question, yeah. So I don't know if I'll be able to word it as eloquently as these guys did. They did a great job answering the question, but to me, harm reduction is of course, reducing harm, but things, I like to have a list of things that include harm reduction. I mean, it is so broad. It is such a wide, all-encompassing term. But to me, harm reduction within the realm of drugs relates to things like Suboxone. It relates to things like creating, ensuring that civilians and people in society are safe, like Andrew Sadek, creating laws like what Lance Block participated in, the amendment of those confidential informant laws, making sure that people have naloxone available, even things like research on these psychedelic compounds, which has so far for many years been hindered. It's been unallowed. Harm reduction includes researching these substances so people can find out what to expect with these drugs. What is safe about, for example, psilocybin mushrooms or LSD? What is dangerous about psilocybin and LSD? And, under a harm reduction lens, in a perfect ideal society, these people that are going to use drugs anyways, they'd be able to pull up a document and reference like, okay, I'm on antidepressants and psilocybin mushrooms interact with antidepressants. For example, that's probably not necessarily the case, but for example, people should be able to do that, just to keep people safe, because there's this preconceived notion that anybody that uses drugs is not a productive member of society, or they don't deserve to be safe and things like that. And that's just not true. Very good people do use drugs, and harm reduction is ensuring their safety and ensuring their ability to continue to participate in society, and even though in spite of their drug use, people can participate in society and then go home and have beer or do whatever they do. And we just need to kind of amend the laws and get a better sense of how to keep people safe and productive and stuff under their circumstances.
Okay, Cal. That was a wonderful explanation of harm reduction.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Now, what if I made you answer it in one word? Harm reduction is?
Education.
Okay. The first word that just came to my head was compassion.
Good. That's a good one.
Compassion. I sometimes think, pretend like this is your friend, or this is your son, or your grandma going through this. And then, what would you do? Sometimes I see like some drunk college kids running across the street after a hockey game, and they're annoying me a little bit. and I want to be angry at them almost. But I still slow down, and I still let them pass, and I'm not going to hit them. And that is the compassion, I guess. And part of the thing that gives me the compassion is I tell myself to remember, pretend like you know this person, Pretend like it's somebody you know who's maybe just a little too drunk, or maybe just is in a bad mood today, or something weird is happening, and they are making a certain decision that you don't understand, but there's still something you can do compassionately that will help them, even though they're not necessarily helping you in a situation like that. Mm-hmm. I guess, yeah. In a situation where there's somebody in the road in front of you, harm reduction is slowing down. More generally, I don't know what you'd say exactly. Harm reduction is a lot of things.
Yeah, it's a good answer. I like that answer. I like the compassion aspect that you mentioned, because the answer to like, what do you do in response to somebody that uses drugs or has alcoholism, somebody's response to that question changes when it becomes somebody they love or somebody they know. So yeah, definitely compassion that's a good one-word summary of harm reduction. I like that, because that is exactly what you should do, because somebody knows that person, somebody loves that person, and if nobody does, somebody should, because they are a member of society. And what happens to people in society that are not loved, not given compassion, and not helped with any helping hand or shown any value, or they fall to the bottom, and nothing productive comes of it. They're not able to give back, and they're not able to get anything valuable out of society that society has to offer either. So I like that. I like your response there. That was a good one.
Part of me is trying to make a silly argument about harm reduction may be, in fact, dyeing your hair a silly color.
Yeah.
And I bring this up because for those of you G-Funkers who have seen me since returning from Baltimore, you would know that I have dyed my hair a silly color. It's pretty much pink. It's kind of purple. What would you call it?
A little bit purple, yeah. I see a little bit of yellow with the way the light is right now, just on the tips there.
Yeah.
Pink, purplish.
So here's what happened. And when we were in Baltimore, some of the people I noticed were people I had met before at the MAPS conference from Ireland. And one thing that you notice about them is that they all have different colored hair, from blue to pink to green and like everything else. And, so I was chatting with them about this, and they explained to me that, they just kind of like having colored hair, so that's sort of why they have colored hair. But they realized once they started doing this that there's a harm reduction value in that, because it chips away at some stigma. They can be normal, upstanding citizens doing really important work that other people aren't doing on their college campus in Dublin, and have silly hair, like, that doesn't prevent them from being who they are, from having a valid perspective.
Right.
It's just something that is so about them. It's just a decision they make. So perhaps the metaphor is, someone who chooses to use a substance, A or B or C, can we still respect their perspective on society and on life and whatever? And for some people, we feel inclined that almost we can't, people at many of these city events we've gone to, city officials sometimes have said that if you use drugs, your perspective does not count.
Right.
That it really is not allowed. And so that's wild. And so, they have silly hair just to prove to somebody, they said, like, they talk to somebody on the phone and they have a professional conversation with them in some kind of context. And then they meet them in person and the person finds out they have silly hair. And they're surprised, because they thought people with silly hair were burnouts or dropouts or losers or something. Mm-hmm. But the truth is there's no causation there.
Yeah, anybody can color their hair.
Yes, and anybody can be a jerk.
Right.
Or whatever, too, whether they have colored hair or not. So it was really funny to me when I was leaving the Baltimore airport. In the airport, I ran into our Irish friends again, and I said goodbye to them, and it was really cool. And when my friend picked me up in Minneapolis, she brought me over to a group of our friends' house, and I walked in on a hair dye party in progress. It was happening, and 3 of my friends had just gotten silly colored hair, and my friend with the gloves on, the chair had just opened up when I walked in the door, and she said, "Please, sit." And it just seemed like the right opportunity.
Yeah, it's calling your name. There's a chair with your name on it right there.
Yeah. So I chose to sit. And indeed, they bleached the bottom half of my head, and then they dumped this purple stuff on it, and it's been leaking all over me for a few days since then, but it's finally dried, although some of it's faded. Anyway, I've got some silly hair now, and it's been fun. It's been fun. I decided to write a song about it, and it's super rough, but I think we'll play it. I feel like sharing it if you think it's appropriate.
Yeah, I thought it was good. And it captured a lot of the topics at the harm reduction at the SSDP 2018. Captured a lot of those topics. You implemented them into your song, and it was a good song.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's play it, and just again, it's super rough. We just threw it down real quick, but there's a verse about each of the different people we met who I realized now were contributing factors to my decision to dye my hair. And so let's play it.
All right.
I almost cut my hair. It happened just the other day. It was getting kinda long. I could have said it was in my way, but I didn't, and I wonder why. I feel like letting my freak flag fly. Why I feel like I owe it to someone. Must be 'cause I met them folks from Ireland. Oh my, how much I do admire them. See, they've been dealing with a drug war all on their own, and they got drug checking kits in the naloxone in their student union, and I thought it could honestly not be done. But they shown us how, so maybe it is possible for us, and see, I feel like I owe it to all of them. Maybe it's 'cause of that good young man Arturo, who fled his country's drug war when he was just 4 years old. A dreamer now, he watched SpongeBob before school, but instead of letting him become a citizen, they're threatening to kick him out, but he speaks up anyhow. Anything to chip that stigma down, and now I feel like I owe my silly hair to him. How about them people from the Philippines, who in their homeland have witnessed 20,000 killings? On the president's command just some few sad months ago, their war on drugs became quite clearly a war on us, but they come for their story to be spread. Who could dare be so brave to speak out against him? But you know I feel like we owe something to them. How about that Andrew Shattuck of North Dakota? Or Rachel Morningstar Hoffman of Florida? They're meant to be much more than sacrificial lambs. There is a legend that will not be forgot ever again. They are our friends and our champions. You know I owe something great to them, but most of all, I feel like I owe something to myself. Thank you to everybody at SSDP in Baltimore this year who convinced me to dye my hair pink and helped me find that out, that though we owe something, we can pay it in. Peace out and stand back on. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, that was really good. I love your style. I love the finger picking. You do a lot of the finger picking with lots of different notes, and that was really good. I like that. You had the verse part of the song, and then the chorus part of the song. I like it. I love your style of music and stuff. One line I was wondering about is you say that you owe your hair to all of them. And I think I have an idea of what you meant. But can you explain sort of a little bit about the song and about that line?
Sure. Well, of course, this is a Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young song off the Deja Vu album called Almost Cut My Hair, in which Crosby explains beautifully why he almost cut his hair but didn't. And the letting my freak flag fly, you know, that line, that's Crosby's words.
Okay.
And his every verse of his ends with, I feel like I owe it to someone. And basically he says he didn't cut his hair because he's not going to give in an inch to fear. He's not going to do it just because it would make him feel safer, you know, if he were, say, getting pulled over by a cop who's going to judge him for having long hair, or for getting judged by anybody who's going to think something unfairly of him because of the length of his hair. But he says, I feel like I owe it to someone to keep the long hair and to show people that you can have long hair and still be respectable and interact with society in a good way and whatever. So I was thinking about that phrase. So who do I owe? I dyed my hair. You know, why did I do that? And I guess I decided that I owe this decision to all these people I would describe in the song who we met. The people from Ireland who had the silly hair, and then these others who have done way much crazier things other than dye their hair, you know. Like Arturo and the folks from the Philippines, they didn't have to dye their hair for me to realize that they're doing a lot to cut the stigma down. And etc. So it's like the least I can do. You know?
Yeah. That's kind of how I was interpreting it, like almost as if you owe it to them to stand with them in the face of that stigma. Like, okay, you guys are dyeing your hair and standing up against this stigma, and I believe what you do, so I owe it to you to stand there with you. I'll dye your hair. I'll dye my hair as well, and kind of either suffer the wrath of the stigma that people hold, and thereby sort of, having consolidarity with that group and being like, I'm a normal person and I'm dyeing my hair, and if you stigmatize me, you don't really need to. It was good. I liked it. It was deep. I interpreted a lot of different deep things that are hard to articulate.
I like that you said suffer, because Alan Watts taught me that compassion really means with suffering. With passion, suffering. And it's relating to the people you're having compassion with. You've suffered, and you see this person suffering, and so you can relate to that. And when you act on that feeling, you're acting with compassion. You're with this known shared related suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it feels more like a celebration than suffering to have fun hair.
Yeah.
But some of these other things, like the folks from the Philippines, they are suffering.
Right.
And Andrew Sadek and Rachel Hoffman, that's suffering we're talking about sharing. So when I do feel a little bit stigmatized for walking into a place and having pink hair, I think about the true suffering that I'm comparing this to.
Right.
And it totally pales, compared to pretty much everybody else's story. And it makes me feel good about feeling stigmatized almost. Just because it gives me a reminder, not because I'm trying to get attention or trying to make myself feel special or something, but because it reminds me, like, wow, the feeling of stigmatization that I'm going through right now as this dude across the bar is like sneering at my hair is not so bad as it could be.
Mm-hmm. And I think it desensitizes people. I think the more people see colored hair each time, they're going to become desensitized to it and be like, oh, I saw colored hair in that situation. The person was nice. There was nothing to be afraid of. So now I'm not afraid of colored hair so much. That person shouldn't be so stigmatized. So there's value in that. It's weird. Upon listening to that song, like hearing the line, like, I owe it to them, or you owe your hair to whoever. It was triggering thoughts in my mind, like I feel that stigma, and it impacts my decision making. Even this morning, in my Facebook browsing habits. Okay, like I'm browsing Facebook and I see an article that I agree with, that I have something to say about, but I refrain from saying anything because I know that it is not the majority belief. So I refrain from saying it. I refrain from sharing the post, or I refrain from commenting my true beliefs on the post. And that line that I owe it to them can apply to me in that situation. It sort of motivates me and inspires me to do a little bit more, and to speak my mind a little bit more, and subject myself to the stigma a little bit more in the name of compassion, in the name of camaraderie. And
yes, and so, okay, it's very interesting. When you're acting with compassion, I think you're supposed to be relating to suffering that has already occurred between the two of you in your own ways. You're not supposed to create more suffering in an act of compassion.
Right.
And so, maybe some part of our hesitation, for example, to post something on Facebook that you feel is an act of compassion is a result of this worry that it might backfire somehow, and that what from one perspective is compassion is from another causing more suffering or somehow being divisive. At least I notice that when reasons why I don't say something to my grandma or to some random person I'm talking to or to the world on the internet, I hold back because I'm afraid that even though I think even though I know from a certain perspective what I'm going to say is compassionate in the sort of the sincere way, that it might not come out that way.
Right.
It might backfire. And I'm always worried about that.
Yeah, kind of stinks. You have to like tiptoe around things a little bit. But I'm realizing more and more that we don't have to. We shouldn't. We should try and. I mean, you still employ tactfulness, and conscientiousness in the way you communicate ideas, and avoiding divisive language whenever you can, but also at the same time acknowledging divisive language is going to accidentally happen. I'm going to accidentally say something that is not politically correct, and in the case that backfires on me, I just reflect and I go with the flow, do what I can, and understand how to employ more compassion in the next situation, I suppose.
Yeah. So my decision to dye my hair, I was worried that might backfire. Maybe this would reduce the reputation of things I'm affiliated with. Like, if people know that I have pink hair and I'm involved in the Psychedelic Club or whatever, are they going to now judge us unfairly because of that? So with that in mind, I say, well, why take the risk? Why not just continue having normal hair and, being myself? But I decided to do it anyway,
Did it anyways.
Maybe it's not a good idea. So far, it kind of seems so. Eleanor from Ireland, she said that she's had hair, colorful hair, since she was a wee lass, and that it's opened many, many doors for her. And the ones that it did close were doors that she did not want to walk through anyway. Really.
Okay, interesting.
And that also was a big... that was on my mind when I decided to sit down in that chair in Minneapolis and pinkify my hair.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's like, if you can't look beyond my hair, then that's okay. We don't need to collaborate, I'm looking for someone who can look past my hair, that I can make a genuine connection with, no matter what my hair is like, a genuine collaboration, no matter what my hair is like.
Or my skin.
Or skin, yes.
My other decisions to do A or B or C, whether it's substances or lifestyles or yeah.
Wow, so that song goes deep. It triggered this conversation here, a deep conversation here.
Yeah.
Even having racial implications about racism and stuff. Interesting. I didn't expect to go there, to the whole color of skin and stuff, but totally.
Perhaps, in the end, I'm just a silly kid with pink hair now, and it's perhaps not that big of a deal. But to me, I felt good enough to share this, what I am personally going to call a sort of ill-prepared song that I just recorded with you, Cal, because it matters to me, and I'm just going to send this to our friends who are in the song and tell them maybe they'll, I don't know, maybe they'll be proud of me, or maybe they'll just say cool.
Well,
I decided it was worth a shot.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll be proud regardless of what they say. They're just all caught up in cool will suffice.
Yeah.
And people get busy and stuff. But that was awesome. I'm glad you shared. Thanks for sharing. It makes me feel like I owe it now to share my songs coming up here soon.
Good. Yeah. Let's do more of that.
Yeah.
Perhaps that would be an easy thing for us to do while I'm in California doing most of the editing for the next few episodes. You could send me some songs and stuff, and I could throw those into an episode. I should.
That'd be good. I should sit down for a couple hours and just take my time recording the best version of the song I can, and then kind of give in a little breakdown of what I was thinking, what is behind the lyrics, and then we could discuss the lyrics. That'd totally be good. That'd be easy. And we've seen here, we got a nice 5-10 minute conversation from a song. Plus,
dude, we just whipped that thing out. I hadn't even practiced that song in many weeks.
Yeah, it turned out perfect, dude.
Yeah. Okay. So no excuses now. For each of us.
Yeah.
If we could just do this, then we can do it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what else? What else is coming up in this episode?
Well, maybe now's the point where we cut to Gunnar chatting a little bit.
Yeah.
So Gunnar is is the president of the Hamline University SSDP chapter in Minneapolis or St. Paul?
St. Paul.
Nice. And he seemed cool. You chatted about what exactly?
Yeah, we chatted a little bit about harm reduction, what harm reduction is. He mentioned a little bit about his political stances, which is another scary topic. Super stigmatized. No matter what you say about politics, you're offending somebody, you're going to get swept under the rug by somebody. Yeah. But, you know, his political affiliation and ideals are different from mine, but nonetheless, I'm able to respect him, and we have common goals. So, you know, regardless of what his political affiliation was, that was kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting to hear myself say it out loud, that it was so drastically different political views, but we still maintained respect and stuff. And then he talked a little bit about cryptocurrency as well, as I think I had mentioned. And that is a whole world. Gosh, there's podcasts, hours and hours, hundreds of hours worth of cryptocurrency podcasts. And the truth, all the details are probably never quite uncovered all thoroughly. It's a vast realm of information.
So a fun topic.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. Then, okay, what if we cut quick to Rob saying his 2-minute explanation of what harm reduction is?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, because we have Rob Goldsmith, our roommate, talking about, our roommate at the conference talking about harm reduction. What
university was he from again?
He was from Ohio. I don't know, was it? He was from Ohio.
Kent. Not Kent State, but somewhere else.
I don't know what it was.
I'm sorry, Rob. Okay, we'll cut to Rob, and then I think we'll cut right into Gunnar.
Okay.
And it's going to go over for the hour, so remember that if you want to hear the full conversation with Gunnar, go to the Sandbagger News YouTube channel, check out the link on the UND Psychedelic Club Facebook page, and you'll catch the rest of the full conversation with Gunnar. But we'll cut it out at some point for you listening on KEQQradio.com, 88.3 FM G-Funk.
Represent.
Thank you. Here's Rob and then Gunnar. This is Willard TeaBelly and
Your pal Cal. Thanks, everybody.
Wishing you a wonderful sandbagging day.
Yes.
Life. Thank you.
A life. Beautiful life. I got a question for you. What does harm reduction mean to you?
So to me, harm reduction is about encouraging the amount. I was trying to come up with a sarcastic joke. To me, primarily, harm reduction it starts off with the acknowledgement that we know people around us in whatever facet of life that you occupy, whether it's being a student, a worker, or just kind of wherever you are in your life. There's going to be people around you, even if you don't know it, who are going to be using drugs. Mm-hmm. And the way that our society currently prepares its citizens to be properly educated leaves a lot to be desired. And when you have a combination of a low amount of accurate information that is presented to individuals who are going to eventually be using drugs, that creates kind of a presence of inherent risk.
Sure, yeah.
And so harm reduction is really acknowledging that situation has been created. And when I as an individual have been educated through higher education and through research of my own, to feel as though I can explain ways in which people can properly use substances that they're going to be using anyway. I think that that's a responsibility that I take seriously, and it's something that I try to foster in other people. So one of the biggest ways that SSDP has been a part of that is giving me an outlet and a voice to encourage proper use of substances, and being a person who is capable of showing people that there are good ways and bad ways to go about something they're already doing, and if at the end of the day you can get through to them in some impactful way that's going to maybe slightly modify their behavior to do it in a healthier way, then I will have succeeded in properly being part of harm reduction.
Awesome. Beautifully said. Thank you for that. Cool. So how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. It's a Monday, but
yeah, back into the swing of things, huh?
Yeah, just hacking away at school and nonprofit work and all that jazz. So
yeah. What is your major again?
Yeah, so I'm majoring in political science and then minoring in nonprofit management.
Okay, sweet. Mm-hmm. I am doing psych with a minor in chemical dependency.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it'd be awesome to go back and learn more about political science and politics. I am like super not well versed in that kind of stuff. I mean, I watch the news a little bit here and there, but I don't know as much as I should. I felt a little bit like things were kind of over my head when I was at the conference, but still got a ton of valuable information. That was so much fun, that conference.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely had a blast, and I don't know, I feel like, you know, what you learn in school as a political science major is, you know, it's only part of what you need to learn in order to like make a difference in the world, and you know, so much more of it is actually just, you know, learning on the ground, like through trial and error and through working with like creating change in the world.
Yeah, the experience itself is like number one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming to learn that.
Lately, that's where I've been at. Like, you know, I can learn more outside of the classroom. But I don't know. That's what it is. It's a multifaceted approach.
It seems like that for me as well. Like just going out. Like I learned so much at this conference, and these are things that would never be presented in school. And I don't know. It's just so much more valuable having the real life experience. But then again, it's good to have that credential, and you know, it's like validating to have your undergraduate degree or your master's degree or whatever, and people take it more seriously and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Like one of my coworkers was explaining it to me a couple days ago that, like, you know, your degree will get you the interview, and it's your you know, your life experiences and like what you've accomplished that will end up getting you the job. So you got to have both of them. But was that your first conference that you've been to there?
Yeah, that was my very first one. I knew kind of a little bit what I was getting into, but I didn't realize how awesome it was going to be. I didn't understand exactly as much as I do now about SSDP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely.
Have you been to one before?
That was my third SSDP conference.
Okay, right on.
But then I also went to the DPA Reform Conference last fall, which I think was like honestly the coolest conference that I've ever been to.
Really sweet.
You know, the SSDP ones, those are really cool because, you know, it's people who, you know, have all had the same experience of like, you know, starting in this as students and like, you know, making an impact like on our campuses and like as young people. The DPA one though, that's the Drug Policy Alliance, their conference, and you know, with that you get people from, you know, all walks of life and from all different types of organizations coming together and talking about like, you know, what it is that, you know, is important to them. And I don't know, it's like even more like varying experiences from like all across the world. And I don't know, their next one is in 2019, and I would totally recommend like going to it.
Man,
yeah,
I'm definitely going to strive to be like, that was the first conference ever I've gone to, and it was so valuable. Like these conferences, any conference, this DPA you're talking about and SSDP, and then the person I went with, my buddy Will, who actually does the radio show with me. Actually, I do it with him. It's mostly his gig right now. Mm-hmm. But he went to the MAP conference last year.
Oh, wow.
In place of the SSDP. So he said that was really awesome. I'd love to get to one of those someday. They don't have them very frequently, but
yeah, I think Psychedelic Science is coming up this summer, maybe. But Yeah, I've heard really cool things about those, but I've never been to one. It's on my bucket list, even though like psychedelic work isn't totally my like, you know, my focus area.
It is or it is not.
It's not really.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards psychedelic science a little bit more and more as time goes on. With a minor in chemical dependency, you know, I plan to do licensed addictions counseling, and there's a group up here in Grand Forks called Face It Together, who is actually they're excited to get me on board as a recovery coach. You know, something along the lines of counseling people that have addictions, and it's kind of an interesting place to be in, where, you know, I plan to help people recover from addiction, but here on the other hand, I support these lax laws about drugs, and even support psychedelics in the use of recovery, which is...
Yeah, I mean, I think especially when you're looking at, like, ibogaine and ayahuasca,
yes.
like, the numbers that have been coming out lately of, you know, how effective those can be at, like, you know, even just eliminating withdrawals, which I guess ibogaine does, like, really helps people, you know, make that step into creating the kind of life that they want for themselves.
Yeah.
Which I think, you know, that really ties into the harm reduction philosophy that we care so much about.
Yes, yes.
Which, like, you know, it accepts that people will use drugs, but it provides them with the, you know, the tools and strategies that they need in order to create the life that they want for themselves. And, like, putting that power, especially around, like, you know, decision making for their lives into their own hands. I think that there's a big misconception out there that, like, drug users are stupid people.
Yeah, or bad.
Or bad people, and that's really not the case. Like, you know, good people use drugs, and there are bad people out there who don't use drugs. Like, and kind of tying it into this dichotomy of, like, you know, this linear mindset of, like, you know, if you use drugs, you are a bad person.
Right.
Is not really how the world works. But I think that if, you know, we continue to, you know, do this work and put these tools into people's hands, that we really, you know, will start to, you know, see the changes that we want to see. And I don't think for anyone that means completely eradicating drug use out of the world. That has never worked, but we can reduce the harms, and we can save lives and improve people's health, and, you know, get people into the workplace and housed and, you know, fed, and I think most importantly, you know, make people happy.
Good, yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, there's a lot of discontent and unhappiness in our society today, and I think that, you know, people like to attribute that to drugs, but a big part of, like, why addiction exists is because people, you know, feel isolated from society. And, you know, when we start accepting that, you know, opioid use disorder and addiction exists, and that they always will, but start providing resources for those people that they can take on their own volition. That kind of that loneliness and that disconnection from everybody else in society will start to tackle that, and, you know, all these issues will start to resolve itself.
Yeah, that's a really good explanation. That answered one of my questions I had for you about what is harm reduction. That was a really good breakdown and analysis there. And I'm glad you hit on the topic of, you know, a lot of addiction, or at least one large component of addiction, originating with this isolation that people experience. And, you know, a lot of, you know, you probably don't know this. We didn't get a a lot of time to chat with each other, but my viewers, I end up mentioning it all the time that, I had an opioid addiction for 3 years, maybe 3.5 years. I was a intravenous opioid user. I would inject heroin and Dilaudid and all the other pharmaceutical opioids. And, it took me a while to kind of pinpoint some of the things behind what led me down that path, but it's safe to assume that a big component of that addiction involved a feeling of isolation and separateness and, not having a connectedness to people. And when you mention, a harm reduction stance aims to bring these people in and make them feel welcome, part of society, and acknowledge that they're not evil people. They're not necessarily bad people just for having an addiction. Then you can create a sense of community for those people that have addiction, and thereby at least alleviate that portion of the triggers into addiction. And, beyond that, when you have such, like you said, a dichotomy about drug use and morals or productivity in society and stuff like that, it's just counterproductive. It's counterproductive for people. So I really appreciate that analysis you gave there. That was really good.
Definitely. And it's, you can't blame it on one thing,
right.
Cause there is the, what is that called? The physiological addiction that, your body is dependent on it, but there's also, the mental and the societal, and these all kind of come together into this Venn diagram of, determining what the cause is, and it's different for every single person. But I think when we realize that criminalizing drug use has not and never will be effective at addressing these problems, and we start to, allow for services, especially like, safe consumption sites, that we will be able to better integrate people who need help into our society and get people access to, the resources and services that they need to, do what it is that they would like to, instead of feeling scared and trapped. And I think especially with, I'm sure you saw President Trump's announcement that he, wants to start executing drug dealers, which is terrifying. I think even more terrifying, though, is the chilling effects that this is going to have. I think the people who need harm reduction the most as a result of this are going to, fear reaching out to get that harm reduction help outside of, the still limited number of organizations that are doing really good work to provide that.
Yeah, whether he was joking about that statement or not, it just further isolates people that are struggling with addiction and issues related to drug use. It's a counterproductive statement and counterproductive stance to take.
Yeah, and I don't think he was joking. To be totally honest, he's time and time again, praised Duterte, the president of the Philippines, for his strategy in fighting the war on drugs. And I believe the number is around 20,000 people have been killed by police and military on, suspicion of either being a drug user or being involved in the drug trade. Gosh. But also, people who criticize this violence are being locked up in prison or being, shot in their homes in the middle of the night.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
Because of this kind of thing. And, to hear a leader, especially in a country like ours, say that this is a good thing and that we should try to bring this back in America is, it's wrong for lack of a better words. Like it's wrong and it's ignorant, and looking at history and like the effects that breaking into people's homes in the middle of the night and shooting them for involvement in drugs has done nothing to reduce its use.
I would have been killed. I would have been killed under Duterte's stance on drugs, and I know there's a lot of people that I'm sure are grateful that I'm not, and like my family and my friends, and hopefully as I progress through my career, the community will be glad that I'm not dead. The community will be grateful for my counseling services and stuff like that I aim to provide. And the reason I sounds like I'm boasting a little bit, but I'm doing so to sort of demonstrate that people that have addictions can give back. They don't have to be killed. That's not good. You can't just kill people for using drugs and selling drugs. It's just not, like you said, for lack of a better term, it's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and absolutely. The SSDP family, this community that we've built around, this mutual understanding that this whole approach to this topic in the world is and has been for decades now been mishandled so poorly, and that like the underlying philosophy of what it is that most of the world has been doing is so incredibly harmful. Like, I think that the community also very much so values that you are still with us.
Thank you, everybody. You have been listening to the Harm Reduction Report. This is Willard TeaBelly cutting into this interview with Gunnar Aas, the president of the Hamline Universtiy SSDP chapter, chatting with your pal Cal. Tune into the Sandbagger News YouTube channel and find the link on the UND Psychedelic Club Facebook page. Listen to the rest of this conversation with Gunnar and your pal Cal. Thank you so much. This has been the Harm Reduction Report. We'll catch you again next week. Sandbag on.
One of the panels I went to at this SSDP conference, it was interesting. It was a debate-style panel kind of thing, and on one side there was very liberal economic perspectives, and then on the other side there was sort of the capitalistic and libertarian views of economics. And the guy arguing for capitalism said something really interesting to me, and that was along the lines of, in a true capitalistic society, if I want to trade my batch of eggs for, say, somebody's cannabis, and we make that trade, and we're both happy with that trade, we both walk away happy, like, hey, I got cannabis and I got eggs, we're happy. Under a true capitalistic society, it's not the government's place to come in and say that that's not okay. And that was super interesting. It was, like I mentioned before at the beginning of the phone call, I don't have a huge grasp, a huge understanding about these economic and political issues, but it sounds to me like there's this super divisive tone within the United States. Like if somebody mentions that they're capitalist or libertarian or liberal, it's immediately this situation where suddenly I'm your enemy now. You are my enemy because you believe this different economic stance. And that's something that speaks to the tone. Like we really need to overcome that tone. We need to appreciate the fact that each person, each stance has valid points. There are valid points within each political perspective, and we all got to kind of work together a little better instead of being so divisive, is I think what I'm getting at here.
Yeah, definitely. And, that is actually a huge reason as to, why it is that I started getting involved in Students for Sensible Drug Policy, is because, I felt I wanted to get involved with, campus politics and all of these things, but every single group, every single issue seemed to be so divisive and so partisan.
Yeah.
That, you're kind of putting yourself into this box. And one of the things that I really like about this movement and this philosophy is that no matter where you stand politically,
Yep.
there is a way, there are people with that philosophy who recognize that what we're doing is not working and who, would like to see something different happen. I was pretty heavy on the, libertarian side of things when I started university, and now I'm more of a left-leaning anarchist, I would say. But, throughout all of that, I've met people that, would agree that, this is something that we can come together and work on. And I think that, if Congress and the mainstream, political parties could agree on this issue and work together to solve it, that, it would start bringing us more to a consensus, and not the type of consensus that, betrays our values. Because this is human rights and human dignity that we're talking about. It's a mutual agreement about how it is that we should treat people, and locking people away in cages for not hurting anybody else, for violating these drug laws is, I don't know, it stands against my moral values. And even though I know that it doesn't for everybody, I envision a world where, everybody can come together and agree that is, morally not the best way to handle this.
Right. Yeah.
And, I think that talking about these issues, with everybody from all aspects of life, there's different ways to approach talking about this issue with, with liberals, with conservatives, with libertarians, and with socialists, with the religious and not the religious. There's actually a huge move within the Christian community right now to start talking about mass incarceration and the drug war. There's actually a really cool organization called the Clergy for a Sensible Drug Policy.
Oh, cool.
Clergy for a New Drug Policy, actually.
Okay.
And, it's really talking about, just as the church was a big part of, ending slavery and, determining that was incompatible with the values of that community, to start doing the same thing with mass incarceration and the drug war. And I'm really excited to see what that has to happen, because I think, that community, the religious community, between conservatives and liberals, the voice of those leaders holds a lot of weight.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Taking that argument with it is really effective in changing people's minds and getting people to think about it in, a way that goes beyond, what they see, the local law enforcement talking about on the evening news, because that is, unfortunately, where most of the people hear about the drug war, and it's not necessarily, I think, the best perspective to be hearing.
Yeah. Yeah. Jumping back to how you mentioned, well, let me just say one of the things at SSDP that I valued so much was a statement by one of the board members of SSDP, and she mentioned the fact about how they were looking specifically for someone of a conservative standpoint to hire onto their board, and that was so valuable because to me they were inviting this diverse perspectives. This they're trying to create a panel of people with many different ideas, just to represent what the population of the world is. The world is made up of this diverse economic and political perspectives, and that was just super awesome to hear such an inviting statement as, you know, we were looking specifically for somebody that is conservative. I did have one question. I've had this question on my mind for a long time. One time I watched this documentary about Scott Ulbricht or whatever, the Silk Road guy, the cryptocurrency. Oh, Ross Ulbricht.
Ross Ulbricht, yeah.
Yeah, Ross. Yeah, and what ended up coming to mind was this question about like cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. How? Okay, I don't even know how to word the question, but is there some way that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency can be useful for a movement of people that are like oppressed, a counterculture, essentially, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I talked about this on one of my panels at the SSDP conference, and I think to really understand, like, an answer to this question, you need to go back and understand Ross's intentions for, launching the Silk Road, which, although it wasn't the first time that drugs were being bought and sold over the internet, really kind of brought it into the spotlight and did it so well in a way that was really hard for, the government to step in and intervene and shut him down. Mm-hmm. Ross, he was a self-professed libertarian, and he saw the harms that were coming from the drug war, in his community, but also in the world, with, so many people being locked up and going to jail for, expressing the freedom of consciousness, or for, managing their addictions, or, even just to have a good time in, people's own definition of what that means to them. Mm-hmm. So he used technology through, the Tor network, which allows for anonymized websites to be run, and Bitcoin, which allows for the transfer of wealth from one individual to another, without, these, government systems that exist in the traditional banking system, for the government to say, like, oh no, like, this is for drugs, we're going to not only seize the money from this transaction, but also, all of your bank accounts and all of your assets.
Right.
And I think that, his approach was very harm reduction oriented, and that it continues through today. There are still marketplaces operating out there where people are buying and selling drugs, kind of subverting prohibition and these broken laws using technology, because there is people who want to buy a product, and there are people who want to sell it and meet that demand. Mm-hmm. And, I'm not a super big capitalist, but understanding of how capitalist economies work, there is always somebody who will meet a demand, for any good ever.
Sure.
I think regardless of which economic system you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And, using technology to do that, especially technologies that are built around, these concepts of decentralization and encryption and the blockchain, which can't really be taken down by a centralized entity, and which allow people to do what they wish and actually have ownership over what it is that they create, that is, proven and upheld by trust that is given by code, not by human institutions like governments.
Okay.
Is really powerful in, fighting back against this war on drugs, which, the war on drugs has been a war for control. It's been a war for control over our minds, especially when you're looking at, psychedelics and, why those drugs became illegal. It was because of an expansion of consciousness that we were seeing, especially in the anti-war left, but also, a war for control of, non-white communities, especially, with heroin being used to target black communities and with cannabis being used to, control Hispanic and Latino communities. It's been a system for control, and as this code is being released and developed and better utilized to take the control away from, these people who have used it to oppress, and instead using the code and, all of these resources that exist to empower communities instead, I think has been really powerful. One of the panelists that was with me at this panel was talking especially about how just cryptocurrency in general is providing access to actually own your own money and own your own wealth, which is something that people of color, especially women of color, have been locked out of for so long, and especially in the developing world, continue to be locked out of today. And how when we have this technology that's as easy to use as downloading an app on your cell phone, allows you to actually own your money rather than trusting a bank or a government to, keep that wealth safe and to give that wealth value.
Mm-hmm.
It's very humanitarian and it's very humanist, and I think it's where we are going to be moving forward in the future. I think cryptocurrency and the blockchain and all of this stuff is very cool. I could talk about it for hours, but awesome. I know that we don't have that much time for this conversation today.
Maybe, there are a few questions. I wish I had a little more time today, but I have a lot of questions related to how cryptocurrency can help combat oppression. And I mean, Venezuela is preparing to launch their own cryptocurrency and things like that. So there are a ton of questions. I would love to chat a little bit more about it at some point in the future if you're free and if you're down for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, sweet. Gosh, I wish I had more time right now. I kind of overscheduled myself today, but
yeah, I know how that goes.
Yeah. So I think we'll cut it there for now. Do you have any other final thoughts or anything?
I mean, I would just reiterate kind of what I was saying at the end of my panel there, for my final thoughts, is that I think the most valuable thing that somebody can do is to take a couple hours to read up on what decentralized technology is and what it looks like, and how so much of our livelihoods are centralized and controlled right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, to start thinking of ways that instead of putting trust in human institutions, which have, in my opinion, let us down time and time again, to start thinking of ways that we can put our trust in code and, in each other and in humanity. I think that's really powerful, and there are a lot of, really good authors that are much more brilliant than I am out there talking about, this stuff and the potential that it has. So yeah, that's my closing thought, is to, just do the research on this topic and, think of ways that you can use these technologies to better your own life. It may surprise you, and you'll definitely learn something along the way. So
awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. I want to thank you for your time, and thank you, Noah, for giving us a spot on the radio, and thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for listening and considering all these challenging ideas and whatnot. And I look forward to chatting with you in the future a little bit here.
Yeah, absolutely.